We got to get into this Bucks-Pacers series. So Milwaukee wins last night. Middleton and Bobby Portis both exceptional, 29 points apiece. Indiana, brutal in the game. Great defensive effort from Milwaukee. And the Bucks fans chanting, Bucks in 7. Doesn't quite have the same ring as Bucks in 6 a couple years ago when they came back to beat Phoenix in 6 to win the NBA championship, but still, you respect that, right? Bucks in 7. So game 6 tomorrow night, Ken. At BetMGM right now, Indiana an 8.5-point favorite, and the total 215.5. The series price at BetMGM, Pacers minus 900, Bucks plus 575. So I love when I come to a conclusion and then we get on the show and you're like, hey, me and other smart people are talking about this. Oh, we're all thinking about the same thing. This market makes it seem like Giannis and Lillard are not coming back tomorrow night. And I feel like they might, based on everything that we've heard. What do you make of Bucks Pacers moving forward? Game 6, that market, and the overall series market?
Yeah, it's probably the most interesting thing going in the NBA playoffs right now. Maybe that says more about how uninteresting some of the other stuff is, like long-term teams to win their conference, any kind of long-term futures market. This is easily the most interesting thing going, because if you just play it out one game, everything shifts massively. But what I mean by that is, if they come back, I don't have any info. I have no idea if they're going to play. We have what Doc Rivers said after the game. We have some very murky reporting. That's basically all we have, at least as far as I'm aware right now, about both Giannis and Lillard. If you play it out just one game and you get a certain result, the markets can shift even more dramatically than they would in a normal result. Like, I play it out, okay, what if the Sixers win Game 6 and force Game 7? Well, yeah, the title odds will change a little bit, and the conference odds will change a little bit, but, it's the same key players all involved, so it'll move in a way that's really, really predictable. And this could be the kind of thing that catches fire, really. Let's say, whether they return or not, let's just say the Bucks win Game 6. Even if one of them doesn't play, because if they win Game 6, it increases the likelihood that both play in Game 7. Would you really like Indiana in a Game 7 at Milwaukee with everyone playing for Milwaukee? I think a lot of people would be like, well, when you put it like that, no. I think Milwaukee would probably win that game at home. They'd probably be favored, which is something that we can't say about a lot of the Bucks games in this series. Certainly not any of the games in Indiana. They were 6.5-point dog.
Well, when you put it like that,
right.
That sounds pretty good. Is that something you might be interested in?
Right, yes. And a 10-point dog when nobody played. And it's just all right. I mean, you play it out you get one upset, and maybe everything changes, because if it means that those guys are if they really are close, and we don't know if they are, but if they really are, and the Bucks force Game 7, just play it out. I think the consensus would be Milwaukee more likely to win Game 7 than Indiana. I think the consensus would be Milwaukee more likely to beat the Sixers with hurt Embiid, maybe. Milwaukee more likely to beat the Knicks, even though the Knicks would have home court in this series. Those at least get closer. These, all the probabilities start changing pretty fast when those guys become healthy. So you can see how there would be a lot of interest in trying to get ahead of stuff like this, and trying to be you almost want to phrase it as, I don't know if they're coming back, but if there's a 50% chance they come back, this is a really good bet. I think that's how a lot of people have phrased it that I talked to today. I bet Bucks to win the East, because if they just win this game, I think the price on everything that I just put in changes so much in my favor, even more than a normal 8-point dog winning outright. And that's the other part.
And you might get Giannis and Lillard back also. That's the other part of this for tomorrow night.
That's what I mean, where it's not just they're going to win as a dog. It's no, they're going to win as a dog, and then the market's going to love them going forward because the guys are going to be healthy again. So the rating's going to change. The market for Game 6 is still really interesting, too. So the two games, the game that Giannis missed but Lillard played was Pacers 6.5. The game that nobody played was Pacers 10. So this is in that range of really hurt Milwaukee, not sure if guys are going to play. I mean, you see Pacers -8, it tells you, you don't need me to tell you that, but just to really frame it with the other two games. And I guess my question is, okay, let's say Doc Rivers comes out and says they're not going to play. They're both out, which I think is the least likely of the three outcomes, which is actually four outcomes. Both play, player A plays, player B plays, nobody plays. There's four outcomes. That seems like the least likely one, or one that's at least sub 50%. I mean, maybe you lose a point on your bet. I guess my point is just if there's 8.5 or there's 8, isn't it more likely this bet improves in your favor than moves against you? There is a chance it moves against you. Game 4 closed 10. So it's not like you're just right on the extreme here in terms of what this is. But man, there's so much room for this to get better. It's really tempting to just try to trade this and bet the Bucks or bet the money line. And like, the more it's basically as you go through tomorrow, the more confident you get that this is going to happen or one of them is going to play. Can you try to get ahead of this the way people are trying to get ahead of the futures? That's why I say it's the most interesting thing going. I don't know if I'm as confident as it seems like everyone else is that this is such a good idea, and it's like we'd have to bet it. It's a great idea. Like, it's interesting. I'm just sort of like, it's also Doc Rivers coaching a basketball team. Like, I want to bet on them to be really good down the road. Like, that's what I want to bet on. But I guess if you're just trading the prices and you're going to end up playing back the other way, this seems like a good time to enter the market on the Bucks right now.
You mentioned least likely is both Giannis and Lillard don't play. What, in your opinion, and this is not like a betting question, it's just like, what do you think's going to happen? What's the most likely?
Well, I guess I misspoke because I think the most likely is one plays, but I don't know which one.
Well, which one? Just for
right.
fun, because I have an opinion on this.
Giannis, but I don't know if he can make it through the game.
I agree that I think the most likely scenario is Giannis plays and Lillard does not. Bucks Pacers right now, both game 6 and the rest of the series. And if you want to do anything with Milwaukee now in the futures market, the latest update that we got last hour was Damian Lillard and Giannis are doubtful for tomorrow night's game, which does not mean that they're actually doubtful to play. That's the designation as of right now. Indiana in between a 7.5 and an 8-point favorite at home tomorrow night, Thursday night in game 6. Anything with game 6, Bucks Pacers, anything you want to do moving forward with Milwaukee?
I don't have anything for game 6 at the moment. I still think Indiana is much more likely to win this series, like until we get anything more concrete. With that said, I did touch on Giannis 65-1 to be the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And that is just basically being like, Giannis to ever be that number, almost regardless of circumstance, is kind of crazy. So why not throw some beer and pizza money on it? So that's what I did. It's not much. If they end up losing right away, okay, so be it. It was worth that risk.
Yeah, I actually like that way more than Finals MVP because it just personally like it would be an awesome finals matchup to have Jokic and Giannis play each other, like Denver, Doc Rivers against Mike Malone. Like, are you kidding me?
Doc would resign Finals, after 3 games.
Right.
After he blames it on everybody else.
Well, I was just about to say, after each game, there's a market on who he will blame. This is like who the Super Bowl MVP thanks first, like God, family, like teammates. It's like, who does Doc Rivers throw under the bus after the NBA Finals loss? I do know from people that we've talked to on this show, Drew Dinsick came on, Whale Capper, who you maybe even have on your show as well, and he was kind of saying it seems like kind of like an old school derby, and that he wanted to toss, which means not use, several of the horses to win, and really created like a pretty small bucket from the get-go of likely winners or even like possible winners. He saw it as a very narrow group that could win. I'm curious if you see it the same way. There are 2 co-favorites, the 2 Sierra Leone and the 17 Fierceness, who are both like 5-2, 3-1 on the morning line. Do you see it the same way Whale does, that small group of horses that can win, or is this a classic wide open derby?
I would agree with Will. I don't think there are a ton of win contenders. And so when you're forming your wagers, you kind of have to decide which ones you want to put on top. Fierceness, the 17 horse, your favorite, a very deserving favorite, coming off the Florida Derby, ran huge in that race and won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as well, running a phenomenal race. The issue with Fierceness, he's got 2 really bad races as well. So if you want to try and beat him, you're pointing to those bad races. With Sierra Leone, the rail draw, absolutely brutal. Draws the 2 posts and is a dead closer. I comped him to Tapit Trice last year, who drew the 5, ended up last under the wire for the first time. I expect that's where Sierra Leone will be as well. And Sierra Leone's a big horse and needs to keep his momentum going during the race to be able to stay at his fastest speed. I kind of compare him to like a locomotive, right? It can go real fast, but if it has to stop, it's not able to get going again. And it's going to be very hard for Sierra Leone to be able to continue to make that move if he runs into any type of traffic trouble. As for the rest of the horses, I really think there's only 2, maybe 3 other horses that could win the Derby. I like the 4 Catching Freedom a little bit, but the post is not great again for another closer. The 7 Anna Marie, 20-1, I think has a big shot in this race. The horse keeps getting better and better. The 1.25 miles should hit the horse right between the eyes, should absolutely love the distance. And the head is what's the big difference here. We've seen in 3 races, the horse really start to understand its job. And last race was its best. I think you're going to see another step forward here on the first Saturday in May. And then the 8, Just a Touch, who's 10-1 out of the Brad Cox barn, also caught my eye. This is a horse that kind of your mage comp to last year, if you will. Only run 3 times headed into this race. Ran very well running second last time to Sierra Leone. And that was in the bluegrass, where they had the fastest early pace of any of the prep races. Well, Sierra Leone's all the way in the back, doesn't have to deal with that. Just a Touch was second through the majority of that race and was still able to start closing in on Sierra Leone later in it. So I think Just a Touch has a chance to take a step forward too. But to me, it's one of those four, because I'm not using Sierra Leone at all. I'm chucking him out.
All right, so Mike has given us like his bucket of horses to potentially win the Kentucky Derby. Mike, I love when we ask you these questions about the Triple Crown races and you like detail how you see the race going basically from start to finish and who's going to end up winning and how it's going to happen. Would love for you to do that here. Like, how do you forecast the Kentucky Derby playing out this year?
Well, it always starts with the pace, Nick, right? And then that's going to be the key in this race. The one horse, Door Knock, is one of your main speed horses. And because he drew the one gate, he's got to gun it right out of there. Now, Door Knock, Just a Touch, and Epic Ride all the way on the outside, drew into the 21 post. We're all in the race at Keeneland. So they all set those fast fractions in that one specific prep. I think that's probably similar to what the pace we're going to see. Your real wild card here is going to be T.O. Password, horse coming in from Japan who had been on the lead. I just don't think he's quite as fast as the U.S. horses, though. So I expect we're going to get a pace somewhere around that 46 seconds. And I love the draw that Fierceness got. A lot of people talking about the 17, not a great post for him. If we do get that 46 and change for opening half mile, Fierceness should be able to sit right behind that leading group, sit 3 wide on the first turn, 3 wide on the second turn. And when you look at this from a numbers perspective, be it Beyer, be it Timeform, be it Brisnet, he towers over this field. Anyone would need to improve by 10% to beat him in this race if he runs back to that Florida Derby. So I think Fierceness sits 3 wide on both turns, able to get first jump on the leaders and wins the race.